my name is Jobby, and today we're taking a look at the Transformers masterpiece MP-41 Dinobot. And of course, this character comes from the Transformers spin-off called Beast Wars, which if you haven't heard of yet, you can go ahead and check out my other Beast Wars reviews, links in the description. And Dinobot here was one of my favorite characters, maybe even my favorite character from the show. Dinobot was a legitimately interesting and complex character. He was kind of tragic and almost Shakespearean, but he had a very strict code of honor that ensured that he would always do the right thing. And do the right thing he did right till the very end, and this is a spoiler by the way. Dinobot heroically sacrifices his life to save mankind from extinction, and that happened in one of the best episodes of the show, Code of Hero. Still makes me a little teary-eyed to this day. Not just because Dinobot's sacrifice was incredibly heroic, it's such a good wrap-up to his interesting character, but goddamn, that animation is terrible. And for the longest time, I wanted a Transformers masterpiece Dinobot, ever since I even heard of the concept of Transformers masterpiece figures. And to prove this, I actually brought some drawings that I did when I was 12 years old. And this isn't simply just fan art of Dinobot, it was actually a plan for a potential Transformers masterpiece figure. I'm telling you, I was way in too deep for this shit. And at 12 years old, I was probably too old for Beast Wars, but I don't give a shit. Look what I'm doing now. But putting childhood expectations and long-winded explanations aside, how does the actual Transformers masterpiece Dinobot hold up? I am excited to say that the painting and the sculpting on this figure is awesome. And one of the first things that leaps out at me is the fact that it's super show accurate. The colors are perfect, the detailing is perfect, and those proportions, damn boy, he thick. Might look a little wide to some of you, but I can assure you that that's pretty accurate to the show. But as you can plainly see, it's not completely show accurate due to the whatever is going on there. Look, these masterpiece Beast Wars figures have had a pretty good track record with me so far, but something that I just have to accept is that the beast modes are gonna have some kibble to them. And in terms of beast mode kibble, this isn't the worst that I've seen. I think Optimus, Primal, and Cheetor are actually worse, but I can't deny that it's a little frustrating to see considering the rest of the figure is almost completely kibble free. I mean, even the belly of the figure, which is a pretty common place to shove your kibble in, is almost perfect on this guy, except for the little foot ding dong. This had to be intentional. The placement is just too perfect. But other than this kibble prolapse, most of the dinosaur mode is covered in this precisely sculpted skin texture. And something about this guy that I enjoy way more than the other Beast Wars masterpiece figures is how they went about painting this guy. The paint is not normal here in a very good way. All the stripes that you see in this guy feel almost printed on directly onto the plastic, which results in a very clean looking but extremely durable coat of paint. This is in contrast with the other masterpiece Beast Wars figures and even the masterpiece MP-36 Megatron, where they were covered in this slightly matte finish, and that just makes that coat of paint more susceptible to paint chipping. The only parts on the figure that are traditionally painted are these claws, and shit, they are very sharp. And even though this guy doesn't have that flat finish that simulates the textures of the TV show, the incredibly expressive sculpting on his face makes up for that. And his expressiveness is bumped up to 11 when you consider his eye-changing gimmick. My god, I feel judged for playing with a giant plastic dinosaur. The only problem with this expression that I have is that there seems to be a tiny paint mishap right here on the eye, but the other eye looks fine, immersion restored. And for even more expressiveness, you can open his mouth. The retractable upper teeth is a really nice touch. Unfortunately for you Beast Wars fans, he can't open his mouth wide enough to perform Vor on his clone. Leave a like in the comment if you get that. Was Beast Wars a fetish show? And it's worth mentioning that the joints on his head are really satisfying and nice and tight. In general, this guy is really satisfying to hold. He's nice and chunky and everything fits together solidly, except for that part. Really, these ankle joints are a little bit too loose to handle his fat ass. Hopefully there's some do-it-yourself way to mitigate that issue, but for now, I just have to deal with balancing him properly or using the included stand. Now, the stand does come in multiple parts, but assembly is pretty simple. And in order to get this guy on here, you get this little adapter. And from there, you could just plug them into here. And if you're not into the whole flying dinosaur look, you can adjust the stand to put them a little lower. Simply unplug this tab and plug it anywhere in one of these notches. Pretty cool that this guy comes with a stand. I think it's one of the few Masterpiece figures to actually include one, but like a lot of other Masterpiece figures, this guy comes with a few other accessories. First of all, you get what is known as the Golden Disc, and this thing was a super important artifact in the Beast Wars series, and unfortunately, it's ultimately what got Dinobot killed. So you could take this thing and put it in my hand, and on the back you get some vinyl detail, the sounds of Earth, and I just found out recently that this Golden Disc is actually based on a real thing, which is pretty cool. And funnily enough, the Golden Disc actually has its own stand. It's just this little clear part that folds out, and you put it there. And that's a really cool look. I could imagine the Golden Disc being a centerpiece in a Masterpiece Beast Wars collection, and I hope it's a full collection. Takara, keep going. Or, if you wanted Dinobot to hold the Golden Disc as he does in the show, you get a teeny tiny adapter that might be easy to lose, so watch out. Simply slide that in there, and you can plug it right into his hand. And I don't know if it's just me, but that's adorable. After the last accessory for now, you get a character card. Very nice retro style artwork on there, and on the back you can see his stats. So all the accessories for this mode just adds to the figure's expressiveness. But those accessories really wouldn't do much without some possibility. You can look up and down that far. Mouth can open, the tongue can move. And I actually predicted this in my schematics. Not the most groundbreaking point of articulation, but when I designed this, I thought it was. Ball joint at the shoulder, and that allows for a rotation. Bicep swivel, bend at the elbow, hinge joint here, and the bicep swivel can rotate a full 360, so his elbow bends inward. Arm moves out. Unfortunately, you don't get any hip rotation, but that is made up for with this joint here. Good old ratcheting swivel. Normal swivel here. This ratchet joint can bend back that far and move forward that far, and you get another bend here, but bend it too far and then you start to see the hands. But if they pop out too much, you could always hinge joint here. A really good pivot, maybe a little too good. And each of his claws are on hinge joints, but that's more for the transformation. And there's no posability at the tail until you get to here, which is a hinge joint, hinge joint, hinge joint, hinge joint. I would have honestly been okay if it didn't even bend at all. But if you do that slight bend without breaking the sculpt, it doesn't look that bad. And the posability on this Dino mode is just that. Not that bad. And that previously mentioned tail adds quite a bit of length to this mode. Not that he needed any more size, because man, this guy is huge. Here's Figma Motic Economy, SH Monster Arts Godzilla, Masterpiece Optimus Prime, the Transformers Masterpiece Cheetor, and the Transformers Masterpiece Optimus Primal. Oh my god, these guys look so good together. I am having a giant nostalgia blast right now. Doesn't look too bad with the Voyager class Rhinox and the Deluxe class Rat Trap either, but I am still waiting for Masterpiece versions of both of these guys. And at this rate, it's probably gonna happen, please. So this dinosaur is a pretty damn good beast mode, and I really do believe this is the best that Takara could have done, considering the impossible nature of his transformation in the cartoon. Seriously, what the fuck? And the fact that Takara took that and turned it into this blows my mind. Dinobot Maximize! Thank you very much. I'm also available for voice acting. Contact me through my email, please. I'm sure the plastic quality on this figure is pretty top-notch, but I would still recommend being careful when you handle these things. They seem a little too thin for my grubby goblin hands. There's a better way to do this. In order to prevent breakage from these seemingly fragile parts, you should collapse the thigh piece and the arm separately, like so. And that's it. And a note here, please cover up the head with these thigh parts before you move on to snapping in the chest. The instructions got it all backwards. And there is a slot here where the head can plug in, but if you do plug it in all the way, he looks kind of hunched. So what I like to do is just pull it up a little bit and let that tab just sit at that hole. There you go. And here we have the robot mode, and who sold their soul to design this? The transformation may have looked like pure cancer, but I can assure you that when you get used to it, it's really fun and it's really satisfying to do, and my god is that engineering brilliant. Needless to say, the painting and the sculpting on this mode is amazing. It is scarily show accurate. All the details from the cartoon are captured perfectly. You get that Roger Rabbit effect once again. And what I mean by Roger Rabbit effect is that this guy looks like a CGI cartoon model that I can physically handle, which is something I wish I could do with other CGI models. Takara, please. However, some of you more keen-eyed viewers would probably notice that the colors on this figure, all the metallic gold and blue, is not quite as deep or metallic as the box would suggest. Even compared to the show, this guy looks a little brighter than normal. But once again, I don't find that to be a bad thing in the least. It's because of the paint they use, similarly to how the dinosaur textures are very paint chip durable. The gold and the blue pieces are the kind of paint that I would find on standard Transformers figures. In fact, the paint quality on this figure reminds me of the Voyager class Takara Rhinox. You still get the nice metallic shimmer, but without the risk of paint chipping. Handle this guy fairly normally and it shouldn't chip at all. And this seems like a very arbitrary thing to bring up, but it is very important in my opinion. The back of this figure, one of the best backs on a Masterpiece figure that I've ever seen. The kibble on this guy is brought to a bare minimum. It is just a little bit unfortunate that the dinosaur hands are poking out of the back there. Really no way to get rid of that. But the fact that this panel covers up what could have been a complete mess. And I don't know if this is just me, but this panel might be made out of die-cast metal, not quite sure. But I should mention that from the side, the back does jut out noticeably far. And I've got to talk about this head sculpt here. Absolutely brilliant. Completely captures his character from the show. If you see this screw here, this head is actually where his electronics are stored. And you do need two LR44 batteries, which are not included unfortunately. But once you do get those batteries in there and push this well-hidden button, you get light up eyes. The LED is really bright on this figure and it shines through those painted red eyes. And to show you just how bright they are, I could just remove his and of course his face is removable because you do get some alternate faces, which are just some of the few accessories you get with this mode. In addition to that default scowling face, you get a smiling face, a crying face according to the instructions, and a face where his eyes are wide open and clear. And this face is here to accommodate another accessory, the eye beams. And that just simply plugs into his eyes, and that looks kind of painful. And if you push that button on the back of the head, you could light those eye beams up.
But Jobby, the eye beams were green in the show, you
Calm down, Takara's got you covered. After you push the button one time, you can push and hold it and they turn green. That is a great feature and way better than what I came up with in my schematics. Look at this complicated shit. It's like I didn't know LEDs existed or something. But at least I did predict an opening mouth. And all of the faces have a hinge joint at the mouth, which just adds even more expressiveness to otherwise super expressive face sculpts. Also, the previously mentioned golden disc and its adapter can be used to be held in this mode. And that allows you to recreate Dinobot's final heroic moments in the show. And the fact that his eyes fade away after a few seconds makes me kinda sad. Alexa, play the Beast Wars theme. Ah! Fuck! Another accessory you get is the dinosaur tail, which of course should be obvious to you Beast Wars fans, opens up to become his iconic spinny shield. Now that pegs right into his hand, and if you push this long button, it can actually spin. If it doesn't fall off first. I'm pretty sure you can thicken up this peg somehow, but as it is, kind of frustrating. But otherwise, the shield looks very impressive, and the spinning gimmick, once you get a good rhythm, is really enjoyable. And to go along with his shield, you get his iconic sword. And for some strange reason, it's a shade of chrome hot pink. When I first saw this out of the box, I thought I had gotten a defective copy, but I guess this is a consistent issue with every copy of this figure. Takara must have been going for some kind of show accuracy here because the sword does look kind of pink in that famous shot in Code of Hero, but come on guys, this is way too pink. And there's two pegs here, one on the side and one at the bottom here, so he can hold it either like this or the more traditional, cooler looking way. And throughout the course of this suckfest of a review, the pink sword is really my only main major issue with the entire figure. Other than that, I would really have to stretch for some complaints. The highest compliment I could give this robot mode is that it doesn't even look like it transforms. Matter of fact, the figure doesn't even feel like he transforms. Everything fits together nicely. Just a solid robot mode. In some unfortunate cases, it might be a little too solid. On some copies of the figure, this joint at the shoulder here is a little too tight. But if you do get a copy of this figure and you accidentally break it because it's so tight, that sucks so much, Takara should really get their shit together. And I recommend you watch this video. It should help you out a bit. I guess I'm one of the lucky ones where all the joints on the figures feel so nice to pose. Ball joint at the neck. Hinge joint here allows him to look up that far and look down that far. That doesn't count. Mouth opens. Thank God it doesn't break. Rotation at the arm. Arm moves out. Bicep swivel. Bend at the elbow. Kibble starts to show a lot if you bend it too far. I really don't care. Wrist moves up and down. Swivel here. His top 3 fingers are all individual and they each have a hinge joint here. But his 2 bottom thumb fingers aren't individual and they just have a bend here. God, his hands look creepy. Swivel at the waist. Ab crunch, and this ab joint is actually double jointed, which allows for an even further crunch, but because of the bulkiness of the torso, kinda useless. Rotation at the leg, can't move back that far. Decent spread, but if you bend the legs up just a little more, beautiful spread. Thigh swivel, swivel at the knee, bend at the knee. Oh, that's tight. I recommend you pull here to bend it. Ankle moves up and down, ankle pivot, and finally, a swivel here. Posability on this figure is just fantastic. You can get so much expressiveness out of this guy, but with this second adapter, you can plug this right into his ass. Not too tight though, because it will get stuck there, trust me. And you could plug him right into the stand for more options. And the robot mode looks so much better on the stand than the dinosaur mode does. And the stand has a hinge joint here and a hinge joint here. Forgot to mention that in the dinosaur mode. And compared to the dinosaur mode, he's not that long because of the lack of a tail, but he is still a big boy. Here's Madoka Godzilla Prime, Masterpiece Cheetor, and Masterpiece Optimus Primal. And I thought the beast modes looked good together. My God, the robot mode. And if you couldn't already tell by my enthusiastic response throughout the whole review, overall, I really do think this figure is amazing. This is truly a masterpiece of a Transformer, and I think I've already said that. This figure is simply put a childhood dream come true. And I think I'd even go so far as to say that this is my favorite masterpiece figure ever. But maybe it's just my nostalgia for Beast Wars and this character in particular, and I have to say, this is a must-have for any Beast Wars fan. If you could afford it, that is. What the fuck, Takara? But you know what? I love Dinobot so much that I'd probably do it. And if you are intending to do it too, I would highly recommend you pre-order one from the Big Bad Toy Store! Thank you so goddamn much, BBTS, for providing this figure to me, because without you, I would probably be kicked out of this newly funded studio. And this figure is so goddamn good that it almost feels like my whole childhood was building up to this. I really don't know if it could get any better than this. Might as well just end the channel here. My destiny has been fulfilled. I can finally rest. Thank God. Tell my tale to those who ask, and tell it truly. The good deeds, along with the bad, and let me be judged accordingly. The rest is silent. Oh, yes. In all seriousness, this guy's gonna be really hard to follow up. This is just not a fair comparison.